Hey there, team. It's Tiffany with the Intelligent Project Manager. It's been a while since we've spoken, but I think this topic is going to be very beneficial for a lot of people, especially given what we've seen in the recent job market. We've seen a lot of companies doing layoffs and having to do reductions in force, et cetera. You can look at any headline and see that that's been the case. And so if you are not using your project management skills to help yourself land your next role, I really want to be the one that helps you to do that. And so a lot of times, even when you look on the internet, things of that nature, people will give very generic advice. And I want to go into this a bit deeper, especially starting with the resume refresh. So your resume, right? That's your entry, hopefully your gateway into having that conversation with that company. And it's essentially, it helps provide companies with an overview of the value that you're going to provide to their business, right? This is your way of saying, here's why you should partner with me or invest in me. And a challenge that we're facing right now is that a lot of times you may not get human eyes on it, or you may not have, you only have so much time to make that impression. And so I want to help you guys be very intentional about number one, the time that you're going to spend on applying for a role and helping to identify whether or not this might be the role for you. Number two, we all fall into this trap sometimes of we forget all of the amazing things that we work on. And so this exercise, I think, is going to help bring some of that to your remembrance. And number three, hopefully it's going to help you maximize and see your top areas of opportunity as well as your strengths and what you can do either in the short term or in the long term as you navigate the job market going forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I've just now opened ChatGPT. And I've pasted in a prompt that I'll explain to you in a second. In a nutshell, it basically says, take this resume, take this job description, and help me understand and identify what my strengths and opportunities are, and then help me create an overall alignment score. One thing that I do want to caveat before you paste anything into ChatGPT, please protect your privacy and your data, right? Make sure that you remove any identifying information such as your name, email, things of that nature. Hey, I know that companies probably have access to our data in droves, but don't be the one to volunteer and give them even more information that they may not already have. So as we go through this prompt, you'll see that part of the scoring logic in our exercise basically says, line by line, I want you to go through this job description. And basically, as you go through my resume, help me understand whether or not I am a strong candidate based on each of the different line items. So, for example, we'll go through that in a couple of different ways here shortly. Or maybe I don't necessarily have that level of skill, or maybe I don't have that level or that many years of experience. So maybe I might be middle of the road with a three, kind of going through the standard partial, or maybe there's absolutely no evidence. A couple things that are going to be very important here, or ways that I have used this kind of exercise in the past, has been if I don't meet all of the criteria for that specific role, what are some short-term things that I might look into as a potential candidate that I can immediately do, kind of like a JDI, just do it. And maybe now that will help me better qualify for this specific role? Or what are some things that I might have to do maybe 3 months from now? And I know that's probably not part of this conversation, but there's a great way that I've used this also for helping me to prepare for my next role or helping me to grow professionally in ways that I think will better impact the way that I work. So as we go down this matrix, that's basically what this prompt is saying. The next output that I have for it is I want you, as you go through the different areas of the resume as well as the job description, create an output for me. This gives me my black and white information with some margin of error. Your mileage will vary on what you get back, and I'm always going to encourage you guys, take a look at this with a critical eye, as no amount of machinery, no amount of AI learning is ever going to replace what we bring to the table, which is past experience, common sense. We can better evaluate based on background information that we have. And so there have been times where I have just run this as an exercise as I've gone through iterations of creating this prompt, where I've had to say, no, this is not quite accurate, and I have used my expert judgment, if you will, to better understand maybe where my potential alignment might be for a specific role or a specific opportunity. And so we'll talk through that in this exercise as well. And then last but not least, I always ask for what are the top five strengths that we might have identified. And it doesn't have to be five. I just kind of like a quick and dirty, let's get into it. Or if we continue to go downward, Then we'll have maybe our gaps. And then what are some ways that I might want to adjust my resume based in truth, right? I always want to caution that any adjustments that you make, let's make sure that that's grounded in truth. The worst thing that you would want to have happen is you get your foot in the door and then you can't deliver and you can't bring the value that you said that you had on your resume. So always protect your information, grounded in truth, and then we'll go through the way that we evaluate this in more detail. So I have my prompt in the chat and I am going to, let's go ahead and grab this resume. And this resume is a fake resume. I just had ChatGPT created for this specific exercise, and we'll go through it. You can paste your text of the resume into this prompt, and we can talk through ways to do that. I have found that there's not much variation between my pasting the text into the chat itself as opposed to uploading the resume itself. And so again, play around with where you find value. This is just me saying, hey, here's a tool that you might use to help you be more intentional as you go through the first step of your job search, which is updating your resume itself. Same thing you can consider for your cover letter as well and how they will complement each other as you go through this exercise. So let's start with a job description that I pulled from Truist. Again, you don't have to go to the specific company. I prefer going to a company's website, actual website, and going to their careers page or their job page. I know they call them different things, and pulling that information in. I'll paste it into a Word document and save it and then just kind of upload it into ChatGPT itself. Again, same thing with the resume or with the cover letter. You can just go ahead and paste that into the prompt itself. It does get a bit wordy and a bit lengthy. And also, I want you to be cognizant that I believe there are limits to how much you can paste into ChatGPT itself. I don't have that answer for the purpose of this conversation, but I'm sure that someone would be able to tell us what that limit is, or we can always research at our leisure. So just to recap, I'm asking the tool, ChatGPT, to act as a project manager who is also a career strategist. So let's set the scene for what we're looking to do. When I say don't be creative, it's basically me saying, don't interpret, don't give me what you think I want to hear. I want just the plain facts based on what's listed in the job description, as well as what's in the resume itself, right? So use the exact same thing that we have in the job description, the exact same wording that I have in my resume, and we're going to create that scoring matrix, right? What do I want to see or what do I care about? Whether or not on a scale of 0 to 5, if I line by line am a potential candidate, I want to see my overall alignment score, and we'll talk through that in a bit. And then I want to know ways in which I can improve and get that quick snapshot of where I stand moving forward. So let's go ahead and hit send. Okay, so now let's take a look at what we get back. So if you take a look at my screen, my output table, which was the requirements or the job description, line by line, I have the different areas and domains that the recruiter or the hiring manager is looking for. You'll see that our prompt has also broken that out by category, which is pretty cool. And in another video, I'd be really excited to kind of like talk through some of the ways that I've used that in the past, or I've coached other people to use this in the past. You'll also have things like what we talked about. So based on my alignment score of 0 to 5, as well as my resume evidence, you'll see that we start building out that matrix of whether or not I might be a potential or Jordan might be a potential candidate for the role. And then the reasons why, right? It's always good to have a good understanding of why something may or may not be the case. Just judging this alone, I will say that more than likely Jordan would not be a candidate for this specific role. But let's see what we get back when we go down to the alignment score. And so you'll see that we have a 34% alignment score. And so what that tells me, based on the job description for this role, which I don't think I told you all as users, I kind of just said I would post it into the chat, but this is the job description that I went and grabbed from Truist Bank, which is the head of the business management office, right? And so there's very explicit things that the job description was asking for, which is what that table generated for us. And you'll see that, based on Jordan's resume, which why don't I flash that onto the screen as well? And I know, guys, I did say don't put any identifying information. Again, this is a fake exercise. I should follow my own best practices. I did not in this case, but please bear with me. I just got excited and I'll do better going forward. But you can see that there is opportunity in what Jordan has listed as their experience versus what the job asked for, right? So the job asked for about 15 years of experience managing high level projects. And I think Jordan, if I take a look at the resume, only has about 8 years of experience. Some other things that were asked for in the job experience in the job description that Jordan probably didn't doesn't have is also fairly evident. So maybe driving strategic initiatives, maybe translating strategic vision into actual actionable plans. I don't know why I'm reading off of the screen to you guys, but it's a really good way marker. If I go back to my screen itself, it's a really good way marker of what those strengths are and what those opportunities are. So let's talk about the alignment score very quickly before we get into anything else. So me having done this multiple times in the past and as I've spoken with people in the past, I already kind of knew, and I know you guys probably saw this as well. There's a lot of no's and a lot of partials and very few yeses. So I already knew this might be something where you just need to move on from this job description and go on to the next one. The reason this is important, guys, is this really now starts helping you not kind of like just, throw your resumes out there, but it takes time to apply for these roles, right? Like, no one has gotten it right yet on uploading your resume, and that accurately converts over to the job application screens. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You upload your resume, and now you're having to retype in everything and then answer a whole bunch of other different questions, etc. That in and of itself can be draining when you think about the number of resumes. For example, if you wanted to 10x, I think gosh, I can't remember the author at this point in time, but given today's climate, yeah, you want to ideally send out as many resumes as you can, but you don't want it to be like throwing a needle in the haystack. And what I mean by that is it's not a one size fits all, and we don't know what every recruiter is looking for. And let's be very frank, right? A lot of times now these resumes are being scanned by other AI. So the way that we want to use this is we kind of want to match AI with AI. And so that's where things like the alignment score, as well as some of the recommendations on keywords and adjustments come into play as well. But for the sake of maximizing Jordan's time or even your own time, if I see a alignment score of, really 70% or less, I move on. Unless it's something after looking at this table, and I've had this in the past working with someone that I've coached in the past, is it might also jog your memory on, you know what, oh, I did do X, Y, and Z based on what they're saying my opportunities are down here in the bottom. Let me go ahead and add that to my resume really quick so that me on paper is actually the most accurate reflection of me as a business partner. Another thing that has happened when doing this exercise is I know of a colleague who had someone reach out at the end of year saying, "Hey, remember we worked on X, Y, and Z. Do you mind if I note this in my end of year review as well? Basically, how we partnered." Oh yeah, you know what? I totally forgot that I worked on this. And so the use of the alignment score can go either way. It's really meant to be taken with the full context of you as the candidate, what you've done, and then taking a look at some other areas of opportunity that you might have missed on your resume. But for me, my own personal judgment, 70%, I'll move on. If it's maybe in that 50 to 70% range, depending on how much time you're willing to invest in this discussion, I say go for it. If you think that you can absolutely deliver value on that role based on your past experience. But I would caution when you're in that range, it's probably going to be hard to really speak to how you can deliver value within that specific role. So let's do another job description and let's take Jordan's resume. And for this one, I'm going to put in another role. And I believe this was a technology project manager role at KPMG. So why don't I actually go ahead and pull up that role itself so that you guys can see it. And all I did was I just copied and pasted pasted this. This is public information, so I'm not stealing any proprietary data. But for the purpose of this exercise, again, it can get very lengthy just copying and pasting this into the browser itself. And so that's where you see me just trying to maximize the use of my time as well, so that we're getting the results that we need. So we've put Jordan's resume into the browser, and now we're also going to attempt to do another pass through and see whether or not Jordan might be a good fit for this specific role. So why don't we go ahead and do that? And I'm going to run this exercise and let's see what we get back. Excellent. So we're starting to get back our first round of information here. So it's again goes line by line. And so we see, based on Jordan's resume as well as the job description, that it looks like at least they are a candidate for, or at least they are a good match based on a few instances. So it looks like two so far, which was the agile project management and Scrum ability, able to identify risks affecting timelines, which we would hope as an experienced project manager, I think on the resume that should be a given. There's a couple of middle of the road opportunities here. This to me still looks like maybe Jordan might be a contender. I would be surprised if they weren't in maybe the 50%, 60% range. Wow, 46%. And so what are some of the opportunities? Let's take a look. So on the opportunity side, it looks like Jordan doesn't have any experience with user acceptance testing. I think if we look back in the role too, one of the asks was experience with the software development lifecycle, which we see here. It didn't look like Jordan had that on their resume. And so again, this might be something that's very hard to speak to without Jordan actually having had that hands-on experience. And then some things that I have done in the past, and I can go through a whole setup with us talking through, okay, what are some next steps to kind of go through or next level prompts to then help further guide whether or not, the juice is worth the squeeze. And again, this is not meant to be homework. This is just meant to help see, you know what? Yep, either this is a good fit, I'm going to go for it. Maybe it's not a good fit, but if I wanted to go for this in the next couple of years, I'm not saying that anyone watching this has the next couple of years, but maybe you were planning your professional development. Okay, yeah, I'm going to check this out, or I'm going to put this as part of my professional development plan in the future. Right? So that's the way that we're looking at this right now. So 46%, I thought we were going to be in the 50, 60% range, but there's some really key criteria that's not there, which is listed just kind of even down below, right? So maybe some of the licenses, you probably want to have your CPA license. Looks like a JD licensure is also a requirement. Some really key things. QA, you didn't have any QA experience, which again is part of the software development lifecycle framework. Want to be able to speak to those really key parts of this job description. User acceptance testing, we already talked about. What's interesting is I did not see any software delivery in Jordan's resume, but again, it was something that we quickly just spun up for the purpose of this exercise. Let's take a look really quick and see what we come with. I did not see that. Maybe I misspelled. Yeah, I might have to read this in even more detail, but I don't recall seeing much. Maybe it's referring to that SharePoint work as part of software development experience. And this, or even down here where we're taking a look at things like, Jira and et cetera, listing those as potential skills. This again is where our expert judgment comes in, right? And this is where we kind of take this as a, hey, here's the initial output that I've gotten from the tool. Okay, now how do I further calibrate as needed with moving forward? So these are some of the things that I would probably just kind of want to watch or keep my eye on. I haven't seen that much. Oh, here it is. Okay. So led a portfolio of 6 enterprise SaaS projects, software as a service for anyone that's not familiar. But again, I think that's a bit of a stretch even to get a 3. And so what I have done when I've done this for professional development is I can then self-rate and say, you know what, I don't know that that's the most accurate. Maybe I might rate myself higher or lower depending on my level of experience. So I wanted to just talk through that with you guys so you have a good idea of like some of the things that might come up if you were to do this kind of exercise going forward. So why don't we do one more? Because again, if Jordan were to go back in their background and maybe they said, you know what, I do have this level of experience, let me type that out in my resume, or maybe I can add that to my cover letter to speak to that in a bit more. That's great. If they don't have the licensure, et cetera, or the credentials, there's no need for us to go any further at this point in time. But that might be something that they put on maybe their 5-year horizon as they were to move forward. So let's do one more example and we'll grab that resume again. Okay. So we're going to paste in the last resume and job requirements, which I believe this was from GM Performance Power Units. And so I just went over to their website and grabbed this information, again, put it into a Word doc, and we have Jordan's fake resume. Let's go ahead and grab our prompt, which we did not do, and let's run it this time. Now, guys, I will say it seems like the prompt in ChatGPT is fairly strict, and that's kind of what we want, right? Like we want a very critical eye in terms of evaluating this. Again, taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that you take this and use this as your end all be all, but there are going to be instances in which you might have to tweak or reevaluate based on what we're seeing. Another thing that I will call out is you see how the categories changed based on the job description. If you have a set of criteria that maybe there's a group of roles that you're applying for and they all kind of have the same thing, you can modify a prompt to fit any way, shape, or form that or role that you need. For me, I kind of like that fluidity as I'm working with different people, different clients. They're all going to have things that work best for them. And so that fluidity is helpful. I will say this looks a lot more promising for Jordan. So we're seeing quite a few threes. We see some solid opportunities as far as leadership. We see some opportunities, maybe middle of the pack with leadership. That's not saying that maybe he or she doesn't have that ability to lead in any specific way. Again, that's going to spark some of that conversation. Risk management noted a 5, a lot more threes and fives. I'd be surprised, please ChatGPT, don't do me wrong, if this wasn't in the 60s, at least 70s. Holy cow, 37%. So what does it take? What does it take to actually, let's see. Let's see if we can't run this again. So let me grab this resume. ChatGPT is brutal today. I don't know that I've ever had an instance in which it was just so brutally low. But again, this is us just kind of pulling things that we see. But I just want to see like what's going on here, friend. Okay, same thing. Okay. So still a lot of threes, fairly middle of the road. So it's kind of like, hey, I said what I said. 6%, I think on the previous one, we were right at 37%. Yeah. So everything was fairly consistent, guys. Like it's not inferring anything, it's not taking anything away, which I'm glad to have shown you so that at least you see that we should get some level of consistency. Maybe I'll ask it to be a bit kinder. I'm kidding with what gets returned. But again, it's meant to really help you as you're going through refreshing and thinking about the roles that you're going to apply for. There's nothing worse again than uploading this to a software system or any number of the job application systems that are out there and then getting rejected because there something was off or something didn't match and you didn't take the time to just kind of think through this. Now I know time is of the essence and you kind of have to get through this, but without my talking in the background, I can easily do this in about 5 minutes, get what I need to see. And then the hard work really is in the update, right? And making and just kind of like having that conversation with myself. By the time I have done this with other people, it becomes second nature now to number one, keep a running log of the work that you do throughout the year. It doesn't have to necessarily be in anticipation of going to another job, but all of us should have some way, shape, or form or measuring the impact that we've had on the business or businesses so that when this type of environment or conversation comes up, it becomes that much easier to put yourself down on a page, right? I think most of us probably run into instances where it's difficult to kind of talk about all the amazing things that we've done. And I know that if you're watching this, you have probably done some really amazing things because I think project managers are dope. But this is just meant to help get you in the habit of just kind of not wasting your own time because that is a constraint. And so as you're talking through and showing companies how you provide value, I also want this to be something that provides you value. So then you're maximizing your return when you go to apply for a role. If you guys are interested, I'll be more than happy to share the prompt and I'll put it on the Intelligent Project Manager website. If anyone's also interested in just kind of like seeing a follow-up to this and other ways that I would kind of go through kind of updating this information or updating a resume, etc., I'd love to have that conversation. You guys let me know what you want to see in the chat. I'm really excited to be back and to help in any way that I can, especially as some of you are just kind of like working through exercises like these. But again, my biggest thing is make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. The same skills and discipline that you have as project managers, and this doesn't have to apply just to project management, just to be very clear, right? But the same level of rigor and structure that you all have put into managing million-dollar, billion-dollar projects, programs, portfolios is the same level of rigor that we should apply to these types of areas of our lives. And why? Because your life is your biggest project. And if this is an aspect of your life, put those same skills into play. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you have a great evening and we'll talk soon.